Here at the Design Summit in New York City, Laurie Rosenwald, very clever, based on your surname. What do you do, Laurie? Tell me about you.
Okay, well, I'm a painter, designer, I write, I do comedy, I've done a lot of different things. So when I go to a cocktail party and somebody says, what do you do? It sort of depends who I'm talking to, what I say, because it really is about 20% of 5 different things, but it always has been that way. So I got into a lot of trouble when I went to RISD, to art school. And, you know, some people know they want to be a photographer or an architect, and that's great, you know, but I was always sort of jumping between graphic design, painting, illustration, writing, you know, and I still do. So I sometimes say, you know, now I'm 60 and I'm still haven't picked a major. Yeah. So it's a difficult, I'm sorry, it's a simple, good question. Yes. What do you do? Yeah. And I have not a good single answer.
So, but you mentioned graphic design, so tell me about the design aspect of your bitsy world.
My bitsy world? Yeah. Who told you it was bitsy?
That's a positive thing.
It's enormous. Yeah. Okay, sorry. I do the fun stuff. I do posters. I did an app for David Sedaris, the writer. I do animations. I do thing where I combine, you know, funny or hopefully funny things with words, and I used to do a lot of stuff for the New Yorker for many years, illustrations, and I do book jackets. I do sometimes logos and identities, but not usually very serious corporate things, but very often something to do with fashion or music or those frothy frosting type things that are fun and colorful and fun. Yeah.
So when you say fun, colourful and fun, is that kind of the key? I mean, is design too serious in some ways, and that's sort of where you're rolling
For me, everything is too serious. Yeah. And I think things, I just think life is too short to, you know, I used to have a sign over my door saying, I can't afford to waste my time making money, which unfortunately proved to be true. But it is the way that I feel. I think like a painter. I feel very passionate about everything I do. There's nothing sort of hidden in the closet where, you know, I did that just for money and I don't want anybody to see it. Mm-hmm. All of the things that I do, I believe in and I feel very strongly and personal about. And it's sort of taking the attitude of being an artist with a big A, but that doesn't fit my personality. So when I started to go into design and illustration, when I first got out of RISD, it was like, you know, when you go into a gallery or a museum, you expect to see art, fine art, high art, but I think that's boring. So my idea was, you know, you do a pizza box or a laundry detergent or something normal, and it would be super beautiful and wonderful in art where people weren't expecting it. But then a weird thing happened in the design world where they wanted, you know, Keith Haring to do a Bloomingdale's. I had done a Bloomingdale's bag, you know, but then they wanted an artist, of course, not a designer. Mm. So it sort of went from low to high, but then it also went from high to low. And things have been sort of mixed up ever since.
That is a bit mixed up, isn't it? So when does the artist then become the designer? When does the design become art? So, those sorts of things, when they become sort of completely melded, that's no longer art, it becomes design.
Well, you know, Oscar Wilde said that the art is by definition quite useless, and I'd agree with that. You know, that if you can use it, if it's, you know, if you can sit on a chair, you know, or a painting, then it's a chair, or, you know, whatever. That's a broad enough definition for me. But I like both. You know, I'm really not interested in defining what is art or what is design so much. I just sort of wake up every morning, and sometimes I'm painting, and sometimes I'm doing a poster, and sometimes a website or logo or whatever.
One of the things that you are doing, however, in design is that you run some workshops. So describe these.
Yeah, for many years, I think it started about 25 years ago in London, in fact, at Camberwell. I was teaching a graphic design course, and it was getting boring and expected, and I don't like that. So it turned into this thing called How to Make Mistakes on Purpose, which has become a huge success in its own way. I mean, I've done it for Starbucks, I've done it for Google, I've done it for, you know, Eden Speakerman, the typography genius. Anyway, all over the world, and it's super fun, and I don't really tell everybody everything about it because it's really about surprise, and it's because in my opinion, we all use computers, and computers don't make mistakes, and that's bad. That's a bad thing, because it's through mistakes that you find something new and you surprise yourself and everybody else. And I always talk about the guy that invented Velcro, Georges de Mestral. He went walking in the woods, he got burrs stuck on his pants, right? And then he was, oh, what could this be? And then he invented Velcro. But he didn't sit down at a desk and think, what this world needs is a new way to stick stuff together, and now I'm going to be creative, and now I'm going to do that. It's something that happens, something chaotic and random. Random is the important word in your life, that it puts you in a place where you've never been before and where surprises can happen. Like, I did this thing, Studio 360 is this really good radio show with Kurt Anderson. And it never ended up airing, but that's a whole other story, it doesn't matter. But his staff did the workshop, and beforehand his producer called me on the phone and said, what do non-designers get out of this? Because it's actually a workshop that anybody can do. You could be in marketing or sales or nothing to do with design, or a designer. I sort of tailor it depending on who, how many, blah, blah, blah. So I said, well, supposing you're a radio producer, and he says, I'm listening, and I said, well, you could ask me, he was asking me, like you're interviewing me now, you could say, oh, how long have you been doing this, or where did you go to school, or so-and-so, many good questions. But for one of the questions, suppose you picked up something that was near your left hand on your desk and made that be the question, a random thing, not the right thing, the wrong thing.
And so I said, and this chucks you off your game a little bit as well, makes you think differently and gets creative. Yeah.
And it's a very simple technique, and I'm not the only one that knows this. I mean, it's fluxus movement. You can go. There's lots of people that know this, but I think it's important, and especially in our digital world, where every time you click the mouse, it's doing the right thing. So it's not like you could spill a bottle of ink and discover something. So anyway, so I said, I'll do that now. So I had a novel on my desk, and I opened it up to the first left-hand page, said gold bullion. So I said, Laurie, do you rake in the big bucks doing this for corporate, huge off-sites, or is this some little in-group, underground thing you do for art schools or whatever? Now, that might not be the best question, but it was probably a question that he wouldn't have asked me, which is the key to everything. Yes. So, like the Velcro guy, what we do in the workshop, everybody does in different ways, is we do a lot of stuff, and then afterwards we say, what could this be? Rather than be intentional and knowing where you're going. Like in Big Pharma, I heard, there was some talk, they have it on YouTube, about Malcolm Gladwell's in the New Yorker festivals interviewing some guy from Big Pharma, and he says to the audience, like, how many new drugs do you think have been discovered in the last 5 years? And I'm thinking, I don't know, 5, 50, 5,000, I have no idea. And he said 0. I thought, what? He said, because everybody in that world, that corporate, big pharma thing, is so directed and so focused and know exactly where they're going. And as a result, it's not like saccharin happened where it was tasted sweet and go, oh, this could be a sweetener. Nice, yeah. So that's what I'm trying to get at, and that's what I bring, sometimes to corporations or schools or wherever, so that people find new things and discover new
happy
products,
accidents.
Ideas, exactly.
Yeah. So to wrap up, they do the workshops. How does it then work back in their workplace post-workshop? Are they? How willing are they to allow those little sort of mini beautiful mistakes to happen?
Depending on, sometimes it's a 4-day thing, sometimes it's a 2-hour thing. So it depends on who's doing it and for how long. But in a general way, they take the things that they've done and then they say, just like Georges de Mestral did, what could this be? And then there's part 2 where they turn it into something else. Now, if they're graphic designers, I might say, do a poster, I'll be back in 2 minutes in the same way or whatever, based on these things that they made in 2 seconds. And the most beautiful ideas and things, a whole collection for IKEA came out of this in Sweden, where I live partly in Sweden. I've done this for IKEA a lot, for Artec. So a whole lot of new products came out of it. When people aren't trying, sometimes, it's like with relationships or anything, if you want something or someone, so really, really a lot, sometimes it's sort of the kiss of death, right? When you're trying really hard to be good, because I wrote a thing once in this article and I said, trying to be creative works about as well as trying to be charming. It just doesn't work.
Never works.
So this is a way of getting around it.
Sounds perfect. Right, Laurie Rosenwald, thank you so much. It's great to meet you. Fantastic.
May I say, though, just to not have confusion, I'm Laurie Rosenwald, but my website, which has all this stuff on it, is Rosenworld, Rosenworld.
Laurie, it's fantastic to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was fun.